Appreciate you.
Thanks, man. Thanks, man. So, just to give some folks some framework, what do you do, man? What do you do out there in the world? What and then
Well,
what's some of your experiences in financial services?
the best way to describe what I do is really like, it may sound a little corny, but it's a about a 30 or 40 second elevator speech. Really, what I do is I help people who are looking to expand their financial horizon. I actually help them protect their assets.
Okay.
And that sounds as broad as it is.
Okay.
Now, my trade right now is I own an Allstate insurance company,
Uh huh.
which we do property insurance, auto insurance. Um, uh, if you have rental property, we do landlord insurance. We do business insurance for individuals that own businesses, individuals that are part of corporations. We do general liability insurance for them, and we do life insurance and investment. So all in the asset protection realm of financial services, that is where I exist. I have been an Allstate business owner for the better part of 2 years now, and I've been in the financial services industry for 16 years. Before this, before I purchased an Allstate insurance company, I was an independent financial advisor, working with Constellation Financial Services, which was a partnership between myself and another gentleman, and we did wealth management. So wealth management meaning, um, if clients were looking to protect their assets, looking to grow their money, um, uh, I was the individual that helped them do that, focusing in the area of charitable giving and wealth protection, uh, and general financial advising. Um, so that's my experience. Like I said, I have about 18 years of experience in financial services, and I've learned a lot. I also during that time, I also have bought investment property, real estate investment property, and that's a passive income. That's a passive income business that I really enjoy doing, and enjoy that piece. And ultimately, my gift is in teaching, and I love teaching financial literacy and financial awareness to as many people as I can, because truthfully, the more we know about the financial market, about how to navigate this landscape that we have, the more empowered and the the more we'll be able to impact community in a positive way.
I like that, man. I like that. So, one of the things, you and I were just chatting on the phone the other day, and you mentioned a concept that I never really heard of before. You were talking about basically leveraging your life insurance, and I don't know if I'm using the proper financial terms, man. I started googling, messing around on investopedia.com, and I found that glossary. So now I feel like 8% smarter about financial terms and terminology. But you were just talking about, kind of like interfacing with your life insurance to pay yourself interest, and I didn't quite grasp all of it, but for those that know me, man, and you heard me say this 1,000 times, I don't believe in coincidences. So I got off the phone with you. I went to go work out the next morning. I'm jogging around. Actually, I was back at our college, Frank. I'm still in the area, so I went there jogging around, and I was listening to a YouTube clip about financial literacy. I told you I'm trying to get really serious about this. And this particular gentleman, I forgot his name, but his talk on YouTube was about the Rothschilds and how the patriarch of the family, I forgot his first name, but the patriarch of the family, instead of just bequeathing a large sum of money, he actually pulled his folks together and set up a system. And he told them a couple different things, and all of it was reminiscent of the conversation that you and I had just had. One of the things he said three basic components. He was like, you guys need to pool your money together and have like a private family bank. So that's the first thing he said. Just kind of leveraging off of each other. He was like, you can borrow any. The second thing was you can borrow any sum, but you have to pay it back. You know, it has to get paid back within a year's time or something like that. And then the third thing was you have to come together periodically and discuss who made money, what worked, what didn't work, and then you guys plan accordingly for the next year. And he was like, anybody that doesn't do these three things, they're out of the family trust or the family, co-op or whatever it was called. And the Rothschilds are one of the wealthiest families. And the guy who was talking, he compared it to the Vanderbilt family, who that patriarch made an awful lot of money as well, gave all of it to his folks, and I think in 92 years, what is that, 3-4 generations or something like that,
Yep.
it was nobody was a millionaire anymore, and he was talking about the benefit of a system. That's one thing he talked about. The other thing that he talked about was compound interest. And that's something that you've mentioned a time or two before. I do get it. I don't know where to access it. I don't know what institution or bank. I know that's not savings accounts or something like that, CDs. So one, I want to pick your brain about compound interest. And then last but not least, before he ended his talk, he said something along the lines of leveraging life insurance. I don't know if he called it products or lines or something like that, in order to, because it was a more sure way of accessing your interests, and a bunch of things that I didn't understand, but I knew that I had just heard it. I needed to get back on the phone with you, and the reason why I'm recording it, bro, is because I believe in sharing knowledge, and if I found it interesting and or helpful, one or two other people may also find it helpful. And even if we can't immediately capitalize on what you're talking about right now, hopefully we can begin the process to do further research to really set ourselves up to have different and better in the future. So with that being said, man, I know I just said a lot. I don't know where to start with my line of questioning. Maybe you know some like step one, step two to give me, but I'm gonna yield the floor.
Yeah, so that's awesome that you actually did that. Mayer Rothschild is the guy's name, Mayer, Mayer.
Okay.
And the reality. So when you start to talk about money,
yeah,
there's always a premise that I like to start from. Now I'm about to make some comments. The comments that I'm making are not to discourage anyone, right? I don't want anybody to be discouraged. However, I just want people to consider the sources and where they're hearing their information from, right? So for example, there is no such thing in finance, in the world of finance, as one size fits all.
Okay.
Right? There is no concept that exists that will fit everybody's financial situation, because our individual financial situations are just as different as our individual facial features.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So that's where I like to start. So, people like Susie Orman and Dave Ramsey and, a myriad of folks out there that are giving people information about, behaviors to have. There is nothing wrong with the information that they give. In fact, they give really good information. However, what you have to consider is, what is your own individual financial goal?
Okay.
And so that is critically important as it relates to what information that you receive. So Rodney, you were talking about, how to use life insurance in a specific way. Well, there are a lot of people who use life insurance, whether they're very wealthy or whether they are uh, not very wealthy. They use it as a hedge. And so that hedge can be a tax hedge. That hedge can be a hedge for their own individual income earning. That can be a hedge for uh, family wealth. That can be a hedge for donation, charitable donation. Life insurance is used as a hedge. Okay, so that's the first part. What makes life insurance a good tool to use is it has some tenets that allow for some really interesting things. So
wait. I have a question. What is a hedge? What do you mean by life insurance is a hedge? What do you mean by that?
So hedging, the term hedge just means it is protection against.
Okay.
Right. So it's protection against something. Like when you hedge, you actually the term hedge your bets is a famous term. What it means is if you are betting something, you want to make sure that you have a sure thing, or you want to make sure that you bet the opposite way to cover your losses.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
So a hedge, just like if you hear the term hedge funds, what a hedge fund is again, these are markets. This is a market that is designed to be an ancillary part of your investment portfolio, right? So if you're heavily invested in growth, then you may want to hedge in, in a bear market, right? So if you feel like it's going to be a bull market, which means the market's going to go up, you may hedge with investments that protect you from going down, right? So that idea of hedge, that's what it means.
Okay. So life insurance is a good protector. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Oh, well, with life insurance, life insurance has some qualities that allow it to be, used as a hedge in many different ways. One is life insurance is for the most part, when you pass away, the money that is in a death benefit of a life insurance policy goes tax-free to your beneficiaries.
Okay.
Meaning that when your beneficiaries receive the money, they don't have to pay taxes. Your estate doesn't have to pay taxes on that money for the most part. Now, why I say for the most part is because in financial services, there is nothing that you can say that is the same for everyone.
Okay.
And you're gonna probably hear me hammer that a lot, because when for people they hear, oh, but this is this, but what about this circumstance that happened to me, and then I had to pay taxes on it? Yes, there are certain situations, and then you would have to consult with a CPA or a tax attorney on some of those things. And I am not that person, right? I'm not a CPA or a tax attorney. But what I can tell you is those hedging principles, those principles of life insurance, make it a really good tool to use to do certain things. So, for example, at a base level, there are essentially three types of life insurance products, right? There is a term insurance, there is universal, and then there is whole life.
So you say it's term, it's universal, and it's whole life?
Yep. Correct. So term insurance is just what it is. It's life insurance for a specific time. It is, you pay a small premium, right, for any event that you pass away in a specified amount of time. So, for example, if you take a $500,000 term policy, that means your death benefit. If you die within, let's say it's a 20-year term. If you die within that 20-year term, your family gets $500,000.
Okay.
If you do not die in that term, then that term policy, you will no longer be able to pay the same premium in order to keep that death benefit of $500,000. So let me be a little bit more plain on that.
I think I understand. Can I explain it to you? See if I get it.
Yes. Yes.
So if I purchase this term life insurance, term means it terminates, right? It has an ending. I'm
Correct.
probably getting it at some rate that's, I'm assuming, a pretty decent rate. I'm guessing. I don't know. And
Correct.
at the end of that term, if I don't die, if I'm still here, those people still want me to pay them. So they're not going to just refuse my money. They'll take my money, but because I set it up in such a way that I let my clock run out, so to speak, in order to still play this game or keep this tool, they're going to charge me a little bit more money in order to keep that thing around.
Correct.
Okay.
So that's the idea of term.
Okay.
So why would somebody use term? So somebody would use term if they are, just trying to get, or maybe not necessarily have a bunch of disposable income or a high cash flow, but they need to have some protection in the event they pass away.
Okay.
That really is the only time that I, as an advisor, would actually really recommend term as a by itself as a solution.
Say it
right?
one more time. What's the scenario?
Only because you're renting insurance. Yes, sir.
Say it one more time. The only time that you would really recommend term life is when I'm short on cash and I'm just trying to get some tool out there to protect my family.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. If you're short on cash, if you don't, that's really the only time. However, I will say most people are not necessarily short on cash. Their cash flow is misaligned, and I'll come back to that in a second.
No. Let me tell you why that rings true with me, man. That rings true with me about it just being misaligned. I just heard somebody today. Actually, we have a mutual friend, for those of you listening, that also went to college with us. And Will Davis today, Frank, was telling me that that nothing was wrong with this car. It just needed an alignment. You know what I mean? And so sometimes we confuse actual issues with minor or major tweaks. You know what I mean? Some people may not be able to afford an alignment. Some people's misaligned car may be so misaligned that it's causing them to have a very bumpy, a very unstable ride. If you've ever driven in your car, folks, and your car been shaking like rah, 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 when you slam on the brakes, a lot of times that's an alignment issue. And so you're right. It could be that our car is just broken and totaled, or it could be a situation that we're misaligned. So I would love for you, if you get a moment, to loop back around when you can, and just kind of shed some light on that, man. I appreciate you even bringing that up.
Yep, and that's kind of how it goes, right? So again, I'll explain. I don't want to get in the weeds with life insurance because life insurance can be a complicated product. There are a lot of different options, a lot of different things to do. But I just want to explain universal and a whole life. Yes. They both have what's called a cash value. What a cash value is this. When you put money into a life insurance policy, the way a life insurance policy is designed is that your life expectancy, let's say you're a male and a male life expectancy might be 83. Uh-huh. If you're a woman, your life expectancy might be 85, right? Okay. And so essentially what the life insurance company does is they say, based on your rating, if you pay a premium of this amount, of a certain amount, and you pay that premium all the way up until you reach age 85, or some companies go up to 121, some companies do 100, some companies, there are a lot of different mixes, but for all intents and purposes, let's just say to your life expectancy. Uh-huh. Then they basically say, okay, however much it costs for you to get to that number, that is the death benefit, that is the premium that we're going to charge you, divided by the number of years and then the number of months. right? So for example, let's just do a crude example.
Okay.
Let's say you're 40 years. It's gonna be 40 years to your life expectancy to you supposedly die based on what the actuaries say, right? And you have $100,000 death benefit that you're trying to acquire. Well, if you divide 100,000, if you divide that by 40, right, that would be your annual premium every year for that life insurance policy.
100,000 divided by 40. Yeah, I just didn't know this was going to be math class. Well, I
mean, I'm just giving you the example so you can see it. But that's how they come up with the premium amount, and then insurance companies charge fees, right? They charge, pretty hefty fees actually on that money.
Okay.
So they will charge you a fee. Usually, the cost of insurance is somewhere between 6 and 11% a year is what they're charging you, right, on your money.
Okay.
Right. So that's kind of what's happening in the mechanics of a life insurance policy. But that cash value, once the life insurance gets their little cut of that policy, of that money that you're putting in, the rest of the money is your own cash.
Okay.
So you actually have full access to the cash that you put into a life insurance policy in the amount of a loan. You can take a loan against your life insurance policy and pull that cash and utilize it for whatever it is that you want to utilize it for.
So
then you'll pay yourself back. And when I say pay yourself back, there's a fee for the loan that you pay the insurance company. But then they say, well, you need to designate an interest rate that you want to pay yourself back so that the money that you put in there can recoup the interest that it's earning inside of these cash values of these life insurance policies.
Okay.
Right? And so that has a significant that is a significant benefit to a life insurance policy. Now, there are a lot of different thought processes out there. There are a lot of different people doing a lot of different things. And there are a lot of things you can do with the life insurance policy. With universal life policies, the difference between a universal and a whole life is just that the universal have what's called flexible premium. Okay. A whole life policy does not have flexible premium, which means if you commit to paying a premium on your whole life policy and you miss a payment, that whole life policy is lapsed. With a universal, yes.
So wait. Yeah. I could have been paying on this thing for 17 years, and I missed a payment or 4 payments.
Correct.
Which
Correct.
one?
Now,
how many payments?
Now, truth be told, nowadays there are a lot more flexible whole life policies, and there are a lot of riders that you can have. Riders meaning additions to the policies that you can add that kind of help with that. You can have return of premium options. There's a whole bunch of stuff that you can do. Again, I'm not going to talk about any of that stuff now because there are so many different things that you need to get with a financial advisor or an insurance professional or a wealth advisor. You need to get with them, sit with them, and talk to them about your own personal strategy. Now, what it does do, though, with the flexible premium of the universal life policy, you can actually do what's called max fund the policy. Max fund just means you're going to pay more than whatever the minimum premium requirement is. And you can put a lot more money into that policy. Now, there is a cap on what you can do because life insurance policies have a tax advantage to them in the fact that the money that's inside of them is not taxed. The growth that's inside of the cash value is not taxed. Okay. Because when you pass away, that money goes tax-free to your beneficiary. So that non-taxability is a really, really good thing. But the federal government says you can only do a certain amount based on the death benefit you have in the life insurance policy, right? And it's called the MEC. It's called a modified endowment contract. So if life insurance becomes a modified endowment contract, it's fine. It just means now that it's taxable. And it just means now any transfer of that money you're gonna have to pay income tax on it.
Wow.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
It does, man. Keep going. I'm with you. I'm with you.
So so what we do as insurance professionals or agents or financial advisors is we assess what it is that you're trying to do, what you want to do. So, for example, state investor, my
Frank?
really dedicated to building my real estate investment portfolio because that strategy for my wife and I is our quote unquote retirement. Now, retirement for us doesn't mean we're going to reach a certain age and retire or stop working or what have you. What we are trying to actually do is we are trying not even trying, what we are doing is we are replacing our work earnings with passive income.
Okay.
So what that means is, if you are a W-2 employee, you work for a corporation or what have you, what it means is you exchange your time for money.
Correct.
Right. So that exchange of time for money, that's an honorable thing. It's wonderful to have a job, all those different pieces. However, as you guys know, in this environment, we're in an environment now where, a recession is looming. You could lose your job pretty easily, right? Yes. So that having a job is not necessarily a safe bet.
Yes.
Because it's controlled by somebody other than you.
Correct.
Well, what Meyer Rothschild his whole point is, if you have money generating passive income, that money is making money irrespective of anything that you're doing.
Yes, correct.
And so for my wife and I, real estate is that vehicle that we're choosing to use that for us to build a passive income.
So you said
to replace our expenses.
I hear you, and I like that, and I actually just wrote some notes down. I've been taking notes the whole time. So you said that real estate is the vehicle that you guys are choosing to use. What are some of the other vehicles that could have been chosen out there? What are some things that other folks that we could choose?
Well, I have to be honest, I've been influenced by a few people. One person in particular is Robert Kiyosaki. I've been influenced by him. He wrote a book called The Cash Flow Quadrant.
Okay.
And the Cash Flow Quadrant is a very good tool. It kind of explains what I'm talking about here, but I'll just kind of paraphrase it. There's employees, there's self-employed people. So employees and self-employed people exchange their money for time.
Yes.
Right? Investors and business owners their entities generate passive income.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
It does.
So Robert Kiyosaki has said that, look, no, you're not wealthy until you have passive income, right? You're not generating wealth until you have passive income that takes care of all of the expenses that you want to have. Now, that doesn't mean that it takes care of the expenses that you have now. It's the expenses that you want to have.
Wow, I didn't even catch the nuance. Okay. That's
so if right now you're living at $10,000 in expenses, but your lifestyle that you want to live is $75,000 a month in expenses, then that means you need to have $75,000 a month in passive income so that you can live your lifestyle.
Uh-huh.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. I didn't even think about that.
So what he means by business owner is he means that the business that you own has nothing to do with you. So he makes a line of demarcation with a self-employed. So if you're self-employed, it means that you own your job. It means that you're the person working in the business. You make the business happen.
Yeah.
What he means by business owner is you have a business system that works and generates income irrespective of your work, irrespective of your input, irrespective of anything.
Yes.
right? Same thing with investments. When he's talking about investments, he means, so there's a difference. There's a difference for when Warren Buffett makes an investment. Warren Buffett actually makes an investment into a company. He ends up buying the company.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Okay.
So, as consumers, a lot of times what we do is we invest in a mutual fund, right? And that mutual fund has it's a fund of funds. It's got a different, that mutual fund company is investing your money for you, right? And it's investing in all these other companies and that kind of thing. Well, Warren Buffett, when he invests, he buys a company. Right. He literally buys it. So he has to analyze it because he's functionally buying it. Now, that company is going to do what he said. It's going to do what he wants it to do. But it's not. When he bought Geico, Warren Buffett is not running Geico. Geico runs itself. But he bought it as an asset to generate money so that he could fund another insurance purchase or a fund buying some banks or what have you. So the concept of investor, it means that you are actually investing in a business system that is generating income for you.
That makes sense.
So that could be my friend is an attorney and they want to invest and they want you to invest in their business. They need capital to raise some capital, and they say, well, we're going to pay you 25% on your money for in 24 months. That would be an example of an investment. You know what I mean? And so now stock is an investment as well, right? Day trading, stocks, options, all of that. Those are investments as well. I'll leave you guys with this. Now, this is from a financial advisor.
Okay.
I will tell you that, and Roddy, this is just one of the things that I've picked up with just kind of talking to people who've had money, people who have experience with investing. When you invest, what's more important is actually putting all your eggs in one basket. Now, there's a saying out there that says, "Don't put all your eggs in one basket."
Yes.
And that sounds wonderful and magnificent, and that's a hedge strategy. But the problem is that doesn't involve making money. That involves protecting your money. That strategy involves protecting your money.
Gotcha.
In a way.
Yeah.
But it does not involve making money. Making money is about risk and taking risk and taking calculated risk. But risk is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Right? Now, what I've learned is a lot of very savvy individuals, they invest with other people's money.
Okay.
So this idea of leverage, you talked about leverage. This idea of leverage is how banks work. So I'm going to explain this by explaining how banks work and how banks make money.
Okay.
Banks make money, and I'll do this with you, Rodney. How do you think banks make money?
So as I understand it, banks open their doors, right, and basically say they're open for business. Come, give us your money, we'll keep it safe for you, right? I think that's the going thing. And then I think they try to sweeten the deal by saying, hey, if you put it in this bucket, we'll just keep it, we'll hold it for you so you don't lose it. But if you put it in this compartment over here, for doing that, we'll add a little bit of extra to it. You'll make a little bit on top of it. And if you do it in this bucket, we'll add a little bit extra more, but we really don't want you to touch it no time soon, right? So I think that's the basic premise how banks work. And in each one of those options or each one of those times that you do that, there's some nominal, I'm going to use that word, fee associated where they make their money. Now I think that's what banks seem to do to the average person. However, with a little bit more homework, it becomes clear that banks takes everybody's money who they put it in there, and they move that sucker around and they start doing all kind of stuff with it. And I don't know exactly what they do. I know they invested and play with it, put in some money markets, trade it. I don't know even what that literally means outside of the surface level statement of the words. And when they do that, the banks are making a little bit more money, which is why they got those things like, we really don't want you to take it out your savings. We really don't want you to take it out your CD, because CD money, we know that we have X amount of dollars at this branch to move around for bigger projects or for longer terms, et cetera, et cetera. And so I know that's what banks do. I don't get it. Can I tell you, it's kind of like a baby being grown, a baby growing up inside of a mom. I know that it happens. I get the basic fundamentals of mom and dad. I got you. Reproductive health, great. But when it really comes to meiosis and mitosis and cell splitting and how that literally actually works, I'm as lost as a newborn, man. So same thing here. I get the basic concepts. I'm not sure if that's pretty accurate or not, but I don't know how that functions at all.
Okay, so the truth is actually more nefarious.
Okay.
So,
oh Lord.
So the reality for banks is banks are. The best way I can describe a bank is a leverage institution. So here's what that means. If you understand what a lever is a device that was made that if you build a fulcrum and you use a long plank, if you put a small amount of force on one side of the plank, the other side of the plank can lift a large weight, a lot larger weight of more. It can generate more force on the other side of that lever.
Yes.
Right? So that's where the term leverage comes from, and banks are leverage institutions. So the banking industry is genius at using OPM.
Other people's money.
It's kind of how President Trump exists, right? He exists on other people's money, and so the reality is, OPM. What banks do is they have what's called infinite ROI, infinite return on their investment, because when you put your money in with a bank, they take your money and then they lend it out to another individual. They pay you whatever the little interest that you make on the bank interest, 0.2%, and then they lend it out at 5 or 6%. Well, it's a little bit more. That spread is what they make.
Gotcha.
However, the federal government allows them to borrow from the Federal Reserve 7 times the amount of money that they have on deposit.
Oh, wow.
Does that make sense?
No.
It does, but allow them.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. I was gonna say they also allow them to loan out 7 times the equity that they have on the assets that they have.
Okay.
So what that means is, if your house has $100,000, if your house is worth $300,000 and you owe $100,000, the bank can use your equity as leverage because it has claim on your property.
Okay.
So what that means is that the banks are now an institution set up to attract money so that it can lend it out so that they can make money on the spread.
Wow.
And then the money that they make, now you can look this up, the money that they make, that bank then invest in some things. One of the biggest things they invest in is life insurance policies.
Oh, wow.
Why is that important? Well, if a bank has a CEO or executive staff, they go and buy life insurance policies with the investments that they make. Why do they do that? Why don't banks buy CDs? Because they know that CDs don't make no money.
Right. Right.
So they go buy life insurance policies. Well, how does that work? Well, if my CEO, right, is a key person in my business, well, I'm gonna take a life insurance policy out on him.
Uh-huh.
All right. When that CEO has done his good work for us, he's done really, really good work, and we want to bonus him. What we do is we borrow the money from his life insurance policy and give it to the CEO. Well, but here's what happens, right? So let's say that CEO worked for the company for 10 years. Let's say that they took a policy, let's say they took a $20 million policy out, and let's say they were putting about $2 to $3 million of premium in that policy every year, right? And when the CEO left, they gave the CEO, they said, okay, well, CEO worked 10 years. We'll give him a bonus of about let's say $7 or $8 million. Well, now, when that CEO dies, let's say that CEO dies 20 years from now. Well, now, that insurance that bank is going to get that $20 million.
Wow.
Tax what? Free.
Wow.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So Bank of America has about $23-24 billion in cash value. Right? They have about that invested. So again, when we talk about these things, why that exists, why banks are able to do that is because at the end of the day, they want to mitigate risk. They want to grow the business and mitigate the risk. So if something happens, if a downturn happens, they've got enough capital to work with. This is also why it's very interesting why banks get to cry welfare and we don't. But that's another side. I'm gonna leave that one alone.
Man, I'm gonna tell you something, man. You just dropped so much knowledge on us, man. And I know for me, some of the stuff that you said was reaffirming. Some of the stuff you said was brand new. Some of the stuff you said was mind-boggling. But this is what I do know. I do know that conversations like this and access to information like this, you can't do differently if you don't know differently. You know what I mean? A person, any of us.
Correct.
And so
Correct.
What you've done for people like me and for any others of us out there that fall into my little category, this right here just pushed in a very entry level. Like, you probably ain't even touched the surface of the stuff that you've been doing for the past, 20 years at this point. But you just kind of broaden the horizon of what we can think about. And we can choose to be like, oh man, and just go back to normal living. And that's fine, because if any of our normal living, our day-to-day circumstances are fine and acceptable and palatable and is what we want, then if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? Don't the Bible say that? Was that Shakespeare, Disney, the Constitution? Somebody said that somewhere. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? But if, however, I know for me, I no longer was comfortable.
Rodney, pause.
Yeah.
Pause. This is Teresita calling me.
Oh, bro, I'm going to go ahead and let you go, man. I'm going to end this conversation with everybody. Thank you, Frank, so much, man. We've been talking.